The Vaxian war fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of what their scans identified as a primitive system. Commander Zixither's mandibles clicked in satisfaction as his sensors displayed a small human colony. On the third planet, barely 2,000 inhabitants. Minimal defenses, ripe for conquest. Deploy landing forces, he commanded. This will serve as our staging ground for the invasion of Earth. The Vaxians had studied humans for cycles. Physically weak, short-lived, fragile. Their military doctrine seemed almost quaint: honor, restraint, rules of engagement. The galaxy's other predator species found them amusing. How had such soft creatures ever left their homeworld? Zixither would soon teach the galaxy the answer to that question. Though not in the way he expected, Catherine Chen stood in the colony's command center, her fingers flying across holographic displays. At 26, she was the youngest defense coordinator the Outer Rim colonies had ever appointed. Her dark eyes tracked the Vaxian ships descending through the atmosphere. Evacuation status? She asked calmly. 70% complete, replied her second-in-command, Clark Morrison, a grizzled veteran whose scarred face told stories of a dozen border conflicts. The children and elderly are already in the bunkers. Good. Catherine's expression didn't change. Activate Protocol Hornet's Nest. Clark's weathered features split into a grim smile. With pleasure, Mum. The Vaxians landed unopposed. Their dropships discharged thousands of warriors across the colony's outer districts. Zixither watched from orbit, already composing his victory report. The humans had fled like the cowards his intelligence suggested they were. Then the first charges detonated. The colony wasn't abandoned, it was rigged. Every building, every street, every seemingly innocent piece of infrastructure had been transformed into a weapon. Shaped charges built into walls, chemical traps in ventilation systems, automated defense turrets hidden in decorative structures. The Vaxians found themselves in a killing ground designed with surgical precision. But that was merely the opening movement. Second wave incoming, Catherine noted, observing the tactical display. 3 more Vaxian ships broke orbit, rushing to support their ground forces. She glanced at Clark. Are the packages ready? Ready and waiting, he confirmed. The bastards are about to learn why you don't wake a sleeping predator. What the Vaxians didn't know what their intelligence had catastrophically failed to report was that humanity's true strength had never been their technology or their physical prowess. It was their ability to adapt, to plan, to think 3 steps ahead of any opponent, and more importantly, their absolute unwillingness to forgive territorial violation. The human response had been designed long before the Vaxians arrived. Every colony in human space was a tripwire. Every settlement, a sensor. The moment Zixither's fleet had crossed into human territory, a clock had started ticking. Above the colony, space itself seemed to ripple. Zixither's sensor officer shrieked in alarm. Commander, hyperspace signatures. Dozens, no, hundreds. The human fleet materialized like vengeful ghosts. Not the small patrol ships the Vaxians expected, but the full might of Earth's Third Fleet. Dreadnoughts, carriers, stealth frigates, and something the Vaxians had never encountered before: hunter-killer packs of small, impossibly fast vessels that moved like schools of predatory fish. How? Zixither's voice cracked. Our intelligence said their nearest fleet was weeks away. What he didn't understand was that human fleets were never where they appeared to be. Humanity had learned deception from their evolutionary history, refined it through millennia of warfare among themselves, and perfected it against the unforgiving void of space. The Third Fleet had been waiting in dark space, their reactors cold, their ships silent, positioned precisely for the scenario. They'd been there for 3 months. Catherine watched the orbital battle unfold with professional detachment. Clark, status on ground forces? Vaxian survivors are retreating to their landing zones, he reported. They're realizing the dropships won't save them. She nodded. The human ground forces, real soldiers, not colonists, were emerging from positions in the surrounding terrain. They'd allowed the Vaxians to land, to commit their forces, to believe they had the advantage. The same tactic humans had used against superior forces for thousands of years. Give ground, draw the enemy in, then close the trap. On the orbital display, the Vaxian fleet was breaking apart. Human ships moved with coordinated precision, their targeting solutions perfect, their tactics ruthless. No honor, no mercy, no warning shots. The humans fought like what they truly were, evolved persistence hunters, who had climbed to the top of their food chain by being more patient, more cunning, and more willing to do whatever was necessary to survive. Zixither's flagship shuddered under concentrated fire. His screens showed the impossible human ships were everywhere, attacking from angles that shouldn't exist, using tactics that violated every principle of naval warfare his people knew. Surrender. He transmitted desperately. We surrender. The human response was immediate, professional, and terrifying in its courtesy. Surrender accepted. Power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any attempted escape or resistance will result in immediate destruction. You have violated human territorial space. You will be processed according to Terran military law. 3 days later, Catherine stood in the reconstructed command center, reviewing casualty reports. 15 colonists wounded, none killed. The Vaxian forces, 90% casualties. Their fleet, completely captured or destroyed. Clark approached with 2 cups of coffee. The Admiralty sends their commendation. They're calling this the perfect defense. Catherine accepted the cup. There's nothing perfect about war. We just understood something the Vaxians didn't. What's that? Humans don't have the luxury of being the strongest or the fastest, she said quietly, gazing out at the stars. So we became the smartest, the most patient, the most thorough. We learned that the best victory is the one your enemy doesn't see coming until it's too late. Clark raised his cup in salute. To humanity, then. May our enemies always underestimate us. To humanity, Catherine echoed. And to ensuring they only make that mistake once. Across the galaxy, other species received reports of the Vaxian defeat. The lesson was clear. Human space was marked for a reason. Cross that boundary, and you weren't facing scattered colonies or outdated patrol ships. You were facing the accumulated tactical genius of a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars among themselves. The humans had struck with precision, overwhelming force, and perfect timing. By the time the Vaxians realized their mistake, it was already far too late. And somewhere in deep space, other human fleets continued their patient vigil, waiting in silence, ready to spring the next trap. Because that was what humans did best. They waited, they planned, and when the moment came, they struck like the apex predators they'd always been. The galaxy would remember.